Namaste. I'm Nikita, founder of Journey from Karma to Dharma. I'm based in the UK, but I have clients all over the world. And I founded this movement because I went on a journey from karma to Dharma, which I often describe as being like a bridge. If you've seen my TEDx talk, then you'll know what I mean. So this time last year, I was running a dance school. It was a thriving dance and yoga studio, and I had spent 20 years building it up. I started at a time when there was hardly any Indian dance schools in the UK, and so I did something which was very much against the norm. I followed my passion, I followed my dream. And since the pandemic, about 6 years ago, I started diversifying into other realms. And so I started discovering my healing powers. I started learning different modalities. I was already trained in neuro-linguistic programming. And so I really started diving deeper into all of these different techniques and using them on myself, but then also using them on the students that I was teaching. And so it was really during lockdown that I started getting all of these downloads, I would say. They were, coming to me just effortlessly. It was as though my soul was communicating with me and just telling me lots of different things, such as I learned about chakras, I learned about auras, the quantum field, karma, dharma. And so I didn't learn from textbooks. I learned from my soul. And it's quite difficult to explain this to someone who perhaps hasn't had that experience, because it can sound a little bit odd or delusional maybe. But it was really like I was awake, in the night, and I was just getting all of this information and I was just frantically writing it down. And all I can say is it must be my soul remembering and reclaiming gifts from lifetimes, And so it was when we went back after the lockdown and I had to go back, business as usual. We reopened the studio that I really felt a shift, and I really thought, gosh, this feels different. And I started to get this feeling that perhaps there's something else for me, that maybe my studio wasn't my ultimate purpose and that there was something else for me to do. I had more potential, more creativity that wanted to be expressed. And so even then I continued, I kept persevering, I kept ignoring that little voice in my mind. I think many of us do that. And it was really around the time of my 40th birthday, which was in 2025 in the summer, that I kind of got to a point where I felt as though I was standing at a threshold. And this is what I describe as being the start of the bridge. And it almost felt like if I didn't take a step, I was going to fall. Like I had to take some action. I couldn't continue. Like the thought of doing another year in the same, role that I was in, it just made me feel very contracted. And I'm somebody that's very connected to my body, being a dancer, being a yoga instructor. So I knew I had to honor that feeling. And so I made a very brave decision of closing down my business. A lot of people around me didn't understand why. They were like, in our climate, you should be very grateful you've got a business. What are you going to do? That was the question that people kept asking me. What if you can't get any more work? What if you don't get another job? Like all of these doubts and concerns, which were very valid. But when you just know that there's something else inside of you, I'm sure many, many people have that feeling, but perhaps they ignore it, or maybe their circumstances don't allow for them to make a change. But in my case, I decided that if I didn't take bold action, I may end up regretting it. And so I really made a point of, really going through this whole process of grief, of guilt, of shame, of blame, of really understanding what was going on beneath the surface and really identifying the patterns that were holding me back from fulfilling my purpose. And so my crossing of the bridge happened over a period of, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And it was very gradual steps. It was very much me taking one baby step at a time. And then there was a lot of guilt associated with it. You know, I kept on thinking that I'd let people down and that perhaps people were disappointed in me. There was so much, like, you know, it's a real nervous system recalibration. It's a complete identity reset, I would say. It's a reinvention. There are no other words that I can use. The only way that I think people may relate to it is if they've gone through something very significant in their life, like a divorce that's shaken them, or a near-death experience, for example. So when I got to the other side, I decided that I was going to document it. So I had already started journaling my whole process. I'd been, you know, archiving everything that I'd been going through. And that's really where this methodology was born from. So Journey from Karma to Dharma is an amalgamation of all of the theories that I've learnt through self-study, but it's also all of the lived experiences that I've gone through. And so, you know, many people ask me, well, what category does it fit into? And I think the closest thing to say is it's at the intersection between psychology and philosophy. It's very much that marriage of the two, because it's looking at life from a philosophical lens, but also with that psychological perspective and that spiritual realm as well. So it's bringing everything together, which I think is very unique and it's unusual, and it very much feels like my calling. So what is karma? What is dharma? That's probably a good place to start. So in my framework, karma is the pattern and dharma is the purpose. And what do I mean by that? So the pattern could be a limiting belief. It could be a prohibiting behavior. It could be societal conditioning. It could be cultural upbringing. It could be anything that's keeping us stuck. So it's any pattern that's holding us back. And dharma is purpose, meaning it's the truth that wants to emerge from us. Now, when we talk about purpose, people often associate that with a job. So I get many people messaging me on social media, or they come to my events and they ask me, I really want to find my purpose. Can you help me find my purpose? But what they're actually asking is, can you tell me what job I should be doing? And that's not what I do, because I'm not a careers coach. And so I often signpost them to a careers coach. What I do is I help people find the identity beneath the purpose, beneath the career, beneath the labels. You know, in my TEDx talk, I explained that Dharma is very much who you are behind the labels. And so when people come to me and ask for another label, that's just not aligned with my framework. And so when people apply for my Dharma Diploma program, I often have to turn them away because they've come with the wrong idea about what Dharma is. They just want to know what job or what profession would be good for them. And that's not something that this is going to help you to discover. It might ignite some ideas in you. Partway through the course, I've actually had people develop business ideas or change their job, but that's only a very small part of it, because Dharma is your whole state of being. So to limit it to only your job or your profession, it wouldn't be right, you know. So what we need to do in order to cross that bridge from karma to dharma is we need to first of all identify what are the patterns that are keeping me stuck. Now, I mentioned societal conditioning, cultural upbringing, psychological patterns as well, such as procrastination, perfectionism, people pleasing, living from other people's expectations of us, obligations. So all of these things are keeping us stuck. They're holding us back from showing up in our truth. And Dharma, on the other hand, is us being the real us. It's us being our original essence, the way that our soul intended. So I often use the phrase from inherited identity to embodied purpose. And what that means is your inherited identity is the identity that you were born into. So your genes, the values you were given by your parents, the limiting beliefs you were given by your teachers, the negative experiences you got from your friends, your siblings, all of that was inherited, as in it was given to you. And then embodied purpose is you in your purest form, embodying your true self. And so embodiment is a key part of this. And many people ask me, why is your Dharma Diploma program 9 months? Can't it be shorter? Well, no, it can't be shorter because it takes at least 9 months for that embodiment. So this is not a program where you just learn theory. I can give you textbooks and you just fill in some worksheets and watch some videos. That's going to give you knowledge, but it's not going to give you that integration. So what I want to see from my clients, my students that are on this journey with me is that they're really embodying this process. So I don't want somebody to say to me, for example, I've overcome my fear of judgment. I want them to show me that they've overcome their fear of judgment. In fact, I use that example because that's what happened. So I had a one-to-one with one of my clients and she said, when I first met you, Nikita, I had fear of judgment and now I don't have it. I'm so pleased. So I said, okay. I didn't get too excited because for me, the proof is in the pudding, right? And then we did a group cohort and she participated. She joined in and she kept her camera off. And she was the only one who had a camera off. And so I asked her, I said, do you mind turning your camera on? And she said, oh, no, I can't because I'm out, or like she made up an excuse. But I knew that underneath that excuse was that pattern, that fear of judgment. And so that's what I'm saying. It's very important that this work becomes a part of us. It's not enough to just say, yeah, I've done a course, I've got the certificate, and now I know it. You will only know it when you live it. And that's really why it's 9 months. And it's broken into sections. So there's community, there's cohort, there's curriculum, and there's certification. So there's 4 C's. And the reason that they all there is because they work together. So community is you being a part of something that's bigger. It's something that's, holding you accountable. And I have a community. In fact, I have a few communities now, but one of them is called the Dharma Lounge. And I absolutely love that group. It's a WhatsApp group. It's free. It's, easy. People join. If it doesn't align with them, they can leave. But so far, I haven't had anybody leave. Everybody enjoys being in that group. And it's about being part of, a structure or a container of like-minded people. And you've heard the phrase before that you are the byproduct of the 5 closest people to you. And so if you're surrounded by people that are not on a journey, that are very negative, that blame other people, that complain a lot, you're going to naturally pick up on that energy, those vibes. Whereas if you're around people who are quite positive, they're quite optimistic, they're working through stuff, they've gone through trauma, but they've come out the other side, you're going to naturally feel inspired by them. And so community is a really, really important part of what I do. The second part is cohort. So cohort is the actual group that you are in for your Dharma Diploma program. So when you join the program, you'll be part of the community, which is the wider community. As I said, it's called the Dharma Lounge, which everybody's in. And then the cohort is just the people that you are going to be in that group with. And that's a really nice, intimate space. And I've seen people develop such powerful relationships. In fact, some of them have even become lifelong friends from being in that cohort together. The third aspect is the curriculum, and that's really the framework that I share It's very much based on neurolinguistic programming, philosophy, psychology, and spirituality. So topics include manifestation, Dharma archetypes, soul lessons, much more, lower self and higher self. There is so much, it's a 9-month curriculum. It's very much my life's work. So it's everything that I have studied myself and what I've lived through coming together. And then the final part is certification, which is optional. And it's for people who really want to go through this process in a structured way and get a diploma at the end of it. So those are the 4 C's. But, more than that, it's about the transformation that you get. I always say to people, don't join for the certificate. Don't join for the cohort, the community. Join for the transformation. It's for people who have done the healing. So if you're at the beginning of your journey and if you still feel like you're healing, it may not be the right time for you. You're welcome to apply. But I would always guide people with regards to timing, because the worst thing you could do is join something and not be ready for it. And so in that sense, I would always sit people down, have an interview, really get to know one another and try to establish whether or not it's the right time. It might be the right course, but if it's the right time. Similarly, a lot of people feel like, I'm going through a major life change at the moment. Perhaps I shouldn't join. And I would actually challenge that, because I feel like this course meets you where you are. So if you're going through something big like a divorce at the moment, or a court case, or something that's kind of hanging over your head, this course might be your anchor. It might be the thing that actually keeps you grounded. And having those bi-weekly check-ins are they're very therapeutic, because you're being, in the presence of everyone who's very inspiring, but you've also got proximity with me and my energy field. And so being in that aura and that energy can be very powerful. And so I have had people actually go through this course and they have been going through something really quite significant and life-changing, but it's really helped them to ground and to stay, really anchored in what they're doing. And similarly, I've had people who have gone through something and then done the course when they're on the other side. There is no right or wrong. It's very much about when you feel ready to find your purpose. And you can only find your purpose when you've healed the past. So if you've still got stuff hanging over you from the past, it's very important to do that healing. I do offer healing as well. I can also signpost you to healers that I know. Any kind of healing, whether it's quantum healing, pranic healing, Reiki healing, forgiveness work, inner child healing, nervous system regulation, somatic therapy. Those are all different modalities you can use. And it's about finding one that works for you and making sure that you've really, really worked on healing as much as you can. Now, a lot of people say to me, but surely we can never be truly healed. We're always healing, aren't we? And there is some truth in that, yes. We're never going to be truly ever healed completely, because the whole point of being on earth is about going through karma. So we've always got karma, that's going on. We've always got situations. But saying that, we can heal as much as we can from the past. So yes, the present is still things are going to happen. But with these tools that I teach you in the Dharma Diploma, you're able to handle the present differently. And so you can actually take control over your karma. That's what a lot of people don't know. They think that their karma's fixed and that's it. They've got to go through these bad things or whatever, and that's fixed. No, you can eliminate your karma. You can, eradicate it. And how do you do that? By first of all healing the past, and then using the tools to heal the present and manifest a different future for yourself. That's why it's so important to go through it past, present and future. So if you've still got grief or guilt or anything from your past that's holding you back, when you think of somebody like your ex-partner or a parent or somebody like that, and if you still have negative feelings about that situation or about that person, that means you're not healed from that. And so what will happen is if you join this course too early and you haven't done the healing, you're going to get triggered more so than somebody who has done more healing. What do I mean by that? So triggers are wounds that get affected. So if you think about it, like when you cut your arm or you cut your finger or your toe and you go in the seawater is salty, that's going to sting. And so in the same way, when you go through life and you have wounds, emotional wounds that have been unresolved, unmet needs, let's say, and somebody or something comes from the outside, that's going to trigger you. So let's say, for example, I have a fear of rejection. Okay, so that's a wound that I've carried from childhood. This is an example I'm giving you, a fear of rejection. Okay, now somebody doesn't reply to my message. What's going to happen? That wound is going to get activated. But if I didn't have that wound in the first place, I'd think, oh, well, she must be busy. Never mind. So do you see the difference? It's not that person's fault. They're just doing whatever they're doing. We can't change other people. We can only change ourselves. So our wound gets activated when a situation comes along and triggers it. So that situation is the sea and the wound is the cut. And that's what's happened. But when you don't have that wound, you see things for what they are. And you're just like, oh, well, there's traffic. Oh, I've missed my plane. Never mind. I'll get the next one. You take life with ease. You don't try to control things. You don't get irritated or hurt by things. And so that's why it's important to do as much healing as you can before you join this course. So often when I interview people who have applied, I sometimes suggest to them that they wait for the next intake in 3 months or in 6 months, depending on where they are in their journey. But many people that have applied, they've already done a lot of healing. They've done so much journaling. They've had therapy. They've been to, holistic therapists like acupuncture, reflexology. They've done a lot of inner work and now they're ready for that next bit. What's the next bit? Who am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? Why was I born at this point in time? Like, why am I on earth? All of these questions, if you've ever asked yourself them, that means that you're ready. Dharma is the culmination of all your incarnations. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Dharma is the culmination of all of your incarnations. It's the final bit. It's for people who are in their last lives on earth. And it's for those that are really ready to integrate all of the lives together, because each of our lives have taught us something. We've come onto earth so many times for a reason. And so when you bring all those things together, you create this wholeness, and that wholeness goes back to the source. So you come down from source, from the universe, and you live different lives. You become fragmented, and then your energy changes, and you go through different births, and you have different roles, and you build up all these karmic imprints. And then when you're in your last life, you bring them all together again. You become whole, and then you go back to source. So it's beautiful. It's absolutely liberating, I could say. That's the only word I can think of. So if you know that that's the stage of life that you're at, then this course is designed for you. It's not a course. It's not a program. It's a transmission. It's very much an opportunity to really understand who you are on a soul level. And as I said, not theoretically, but that embodiment piece. So if this resonates, if this inspires you, then visit the link below or dharmadiploma.com. Book an interview and we'll go through the application process. And as I said, I'll always be honest with you if I think that you're not right for it, or if I think that it's not the right timing, or if I think that we're completely aligned and, you know, you're part of my soul family. I would love to have you in my world, and we're on a mission to reawaken the planet as we go into new earth. We're all here to do our bit, and this is my way of doing my part. I very much feel like it's my Dharma to help you find your Dharma. So I would love to hear from you if this feels right for you. Thank you for listening and watching. Namaste.